There's something strange about the air tonight, isn't there? It feels heavier, like it's carrying a warning no one wants to hear. Everyone's pretending everything's fine, laughing, scrolling, planning. But deep down, they feel it too. That quiet pressure building, that eerie stillness before the storm. You can smell fear before it arrives. It has a taste. Metallic, sharp, familiar. And when it finally comes, it won't knock. It'll just slip in, slow and smiling, like it was invited. You've been told to prepare, but you didn't listen. Now the clock's ticking. And the horror isn't coming from outside. It's already here, waiting for you to notice. People don't really listen to warnings. They only believe in pain. You tell them something's coming, they laugh. You whisper, they scroll. You scream, they mute you. Until, of course, the sky starts to crack and the walls start to shake, and suddenly every ignored warning sounds like a prophecy. That's the thing about people. They don't wake up until the floor gives way beneath them. They crave danger, but they call it coincidence. They walk straight into the fire and act surprised when it burns. Warnings aren't supposed to comfort you. They're supposed to disturb you. They're the whispers in the dark that say, "Get ready," not "Relax." But no one wants to hear that. They want pretty lies wrapped in soft voices. They want to be told everything's fine, even when the walls are bleeding truth. Because truth doesn't sell comfort, it sells clarity, and clarity is terrifying. When you see the world for what it really is, you can't unsee it. You can't laugh like before, sleep like before, trust like before. That's why people pretend. They call it peace, but it's really blindness. Have you ever noticed how everyone mocks the messenger? The one who sees what's coming. They call him paranoid, dramatic, crazy. They roll their eyes, turn up the music, and drown out the truth. Because believing means acting, and acting means changing, and no one wants that. They'd rather cling to normality like it's a shield. They think if they ignore the signs, the storm will forget them. But storms don't forget. They just wait until you're least prepared. The signs are always there. Always. The tension in the air, the shift in people's eyes, the way time starts feeling slower. It's like the universe starts whispering warnings through everything around you. But people are too busy staring at screens to notice. They don't see how the patterns repeat, how the same mistakes circle back wearing different masks. They don't hear the ticking anymore. It's become background noise. They call it life. I call it countdown. And when the warning finally comes to life, they act like victims. No one told us. That's the lie they tell themselves to stay innocent. But deep down they knew. They always know. You can feel danger long before you see it. That uneasiness in your chest. That chill that doesn't make sense. That's the universe tugging your sleeve, saying move. But instead of listening, you stay. Because staying is easy. Leaving requires strength. And most people would rather be comfortable than correct. Warnings don't always come wrapped in thunder. Sometimes they come in whispers, in instincts, in sudden urges to walk away, in dreams that feel too real. You brush them off, Because logic tells you not to be foolish. But logic isn't always your friend. Logic builds cages out of reasons and locks the door with pride. Instinct, though, that's the voice of something older, something wiser. It's the part of you that remembers what danger feels like even when you can't see it, but you silence it with excuses. And that's when it happens. You miss your cue to prepare. People think horror strikes suddenly, but it doesn't. It builds. It grows in shadows while you pretend not to see. It watches your patterns, your habits, your ignorance. And then one day, it moves. Slowly, deliberately, like it's been waiting for you to stop paying attention. That's when you realize every ignored warning was a piece of the puzzle. Every strange feeling, every uneasy silence, it all connected. But by the time you understand, it's already too late. The horror doesn't need to chase you. It just needs you to keep pretending it's not real. The irony is, warnings don't come to scare you. They come to save you. But saving yourself requires humility. The kind that admits, I don't know everything. And people hate that. They'd rather risk chaos than admit vulnerability. They mock the very thing that's trying to help them. That's how blindness becomes a choice. Not ignorance. Denial. You can't warn someone who enjoys the illusion too much. So the question becomes, how many warnings do you need before you listen? How many close calls? How many sleepless nights? How many signs do you ignore before you realize this isn't coincidence? It's direction. The universe doesn't repeat itself for fun. It repeats because you weren't paying attention the first time. Every warning is a second chance disguised as fear. But if you keep treating fear like the enemy, you'll never hear the message hidden beneath it. People think the danger is in the event, but it's not. The real danger is in the delay. In that moment when you know something's wrong, but you convince yourself to wait. Tomorrow, you say, I'll handle it tomorrow. And by the time tomorrow comes, the horror's already made itself at home. It's sitting in your chair, drinking from your glass, smiling like it's been there forever. Because it has. You just refuse to see it. You ever notice how people always see the signs, but they never believe them? It's almost like they're allergic to reality. They sense something's off. The air feels heavier. The tension rises. Things stop making sense. But instead of preparing, they laugh it off. It's nothing, they say. Just my imagination. That's how it always starts. Not with the horror itself, but with the refusal to admit it's already here. Ignoring the signs is the first move in the dance of disaster. The world doesn't crumble in one day. It cracks slowly, in silence. First, it's just a shift in the energy. Someone you trust starts acting strange. Places that once felt safe begin to feel cold. You shrug it off because you're too used to routine, too used to pretending. You tell yourself everything's fine. You drown the unease in noise, in people, in meaningless distractions. But deep down, there's a small voice whispering that something's wrong. And every time you ignore it, it gets quieter. Until one day, it stops talking altogether. That's when you're in real danger. not when the storm comes, but when you can't feel it anymore. People like comfort more than truth. They think ignorance is peace, but it's not. It's sedation. You can't protect yourself from what you refuse to see. And the worst part, the signs were never hiding. They were right there, written on faces, in dreams, in coincidences that weren't coincidences at all. But you didn't want to know. You thought knowing would make you paranoid, when really it would have made you prepared. You traded awareness for comfort, and comfort always collects a price. There's something strange about how humans treat warnings. They romanticize chaos, play with danger, flirt with the edge just to feel alive. But the second consequences arrive, they scream. Why didn't anyone tell me? They were told. They just didn't want to believe the story unless it ended in their favor. You see, people don't want truth. They want reassurance. They don't want signs. They want guarantees. But life doesn't deal in guarantees. It gives hints, patterns, glimpses, and expects you to pay attention. You can't blame fate for what you ignored out of convenience. When the signs came, you felt them. That strange dream that wouldn't leave your head. That sudden gut feeling telling you to wait, to stop, to leave. But you didn't listen, because you thought logic knew better. You wanted proof, something you could touch, measure, explain. But by the time proof arrives, it's too late. Proof always comes after the fall. The signs are mercy, proof is punishment. You ever watch how animals react before a storm? They move differently. The birds fly lower, the dogs grow restless, the silence thickens. They know before the thunder even starts. That's instinct. Something humans used to have before they drowned it in noise and distraction. Now you get 1,000 warnings every day and scroll past all of them, too numb to care. And when the storm finally hits, you act surprised. You call it sudden. But the truth is, it was building the whole time, right under your nose. Ignoring signs doesn't make danger disappear. It just makes you blind to the shape it's taking. And the moment you choose blindness, you give it power. You invite it closer. Let it move freely while you pretend everything's fine. That's the cruel part. People think ignorance protects them. It doesn't. It feeds the very thing they fear. When you close your eyes, the darkness doesn't vanish. It just feels safer because you can't see it. But it's still there, breathing right beside you. Every disaster, every downfall, every betrayal, they all leave a trail. Red flags don't appear out of nowhere. You see them. You just don't want to admit what they mean. Because once you acknowledge them, you have to make a choice. Stay or go, speak or stay silent, prepare or pretend. And most people would rather lie to themselves than face the discomfort of truth. That's why horror always wins. It doesn't need to be smart. It just needs you to keep ignoring it. The irony is, the people who ignore signs are always the ones who swear they'd never let that happen. They think awareness means fear, but it's the opposite. Awareness is armor. It doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you ready. But society teaches you to stay calm, stay polite, stay predictable. Don't overreact, they say. It's probably nothing. Those words have buried more people than bullets ever have. Probably nothing is the lullaby that lures the world to sleep before the chaos starts. You can only ignore the signs for so long before they start screaming. And when they do, it's not subtle. It's the sudden betrayal that leaves you speechless. It's the accident that came out of nowhere. It's the loss that no one could have predicted. But deep down, you saw it coming. You just didn't want to ruin the illusion of normal. That's the price of denial. It doesn't stop the horror. It just delays your awareness of it. So when the next warning appears, and it will, don't roll your eyes. Don't laugh it off. Don't call it coincidence. The universe doesn't repeat itself for entertainment. It's trying to tell you something. And if you keep ignoring it, you'll learn the hard way that every sign unheeded becomes a consequence earned. You ever realize how people only start praying when things start falling apart? When life's bleeding out in front of them, when their plans burn to ash, that's when they suddenly remember the sky exists. It's funny, isn't it? They'll mock faith, laugh at hope, but the moment their world tilts, they start whispering, begging, promising, like desperate gamblers trying to bribe fate for one more chance. But you can't bargain with what's already watching you. You can't cheat the test that was designed to expose you. The storm doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal who you've always been underneath all that pretending. See, pain has a way of peeling back the mask. When life's easy, everyone's kind, everyone's patient, everyone's wise. But when the fire hits, that's when you see who's real. The calm ones start cracking, the loud ones go silent. The fake smiles fade, and what's left is truth. That's the gift of struggle. It strips away the noise, the image, the act. It forces you to meet yourself without filters, without titles, without excuses. And that meeting, it's terrifying, because you realize you've been lying to yourself far more than the world ever lied to you. People think being blessed means having no problems. That's the biggest joke of all. Blessings don't come wrapped in comfort. They come disguised as chaos. They look like endings, heartbreaks, betrayals. They taste bitter at first, but they're medicine, not poison. The pain isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's the universe rearranging your life to fit the version of you that you were always meant to become. But of course, most people never see it that way. They resist, they panic, they curse the timing, never realizing that the destruction they're crying about is actually construction in disguise. You ever wonder why the strongest people always have the darkest pasts? Because strength isn't built in peace. It's forged in struggle, molded in pain, sharpened in disappointment. Every scar, every loss, every sleepless night adds another layer of armor. The weak avoid pain, the strong absorb it. That's the difference. The weak run from the storm, the strong learn to dance in the rain. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand it's the only way to grow. Growth doesn't ask for your permission. It demands your transformation. The thing is, Everyone says they want change, but nobody wants to change. They want a new life, but not a new mindset. They want blessings, but not discipline. They want miracles, but without sacrifice. They want to skip the process and still get the prize. But the universe doesn't work like that. It doesn't hand you gold until you've proven you can handle the fire that forges it. You can't receive abundance with the same mindset that led you into scarcity. You can't hold greatness with hands still trembling from fear. So life tests you, shakes you, humbles you, until you're ready to carry what you've been praying for. And that's when most people give up. Right before it happens, they break down one step away from breakthrough. They curse the very storm that's trying to deliver them to the next level. They call it bad luck, bad timing, bad fate, when really it's divine alignment. You're not being buried, you're being planted, but the soil feels the same in both situations, doesn't it? Dark, cold, lonely. You can't tell if it's a grave or a beginning, so you panic. You dig yourself out before you bloom. That's why so many never see the light. They escape the process before it finishes its work. The most dangerous moment in any transformation isn't the beginning. It's the middle. That's where doubt lives. That's where you question everything. You're too far to turn back, but not close enough to see the results. It's a silent war between who you were and who you're becoming. And most people lose that battle, not because they're weak, but because they get tired. Tired of waiting, tired of trusting, tired of believing. But that's the test. The waiting room of greatness, the ones who survive it. They're not the smartest or the luckiest. They're just the ones who refuse to quit when it stops feeling good. You see, you can't fake faith when everything's falling apart. You can't pretend to trust when there's no plan left. That's when belief becomes real. Not when everything makes sense, but when it doesn't, and you still move. That's the kind of faith that shakes the universe, the kind that opens doors no logic could explain. Because at that point, it's not about religion or rituals. It's about surrender. About saying, I don't know how, but I know I'm not done. That's power. That's the moment the game shifts. Most people don't realize this, but every challenge carries a hidden reward. Every failure contains a seed of mastery. Every rejection redirects you to the right door, but you'll never see it if you're busy crying over the one that closed. Life doesn't take things from you to hurt you. It removes what you've outgrown. But humans love attachment more than freedom. They'd rather hold on to what's killing them than face the fear of the unknown. That's why they stay stuck. Not because they can't change, but because they won't let go. So, when everything starts collapsing, when the world goes quiet, and it feels like you're losing everything, remember, it's not the end. It's exposure. It's revelation. It's transformation in progress. The version of you that's being built in that chaos will look back one day and laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was necessary. You ever notice how people will pray for answers but run from the silence that follows? They want a voice from the sky, a miracle, a sign. But when it comes, they hesitate. They question it, overthink it, delay it. Like the truth is something they can negotiate with. The problem isn't that the answers don't come. It's that people aren't ready to obey when they do. They ask for direction, but they still want control. They say, "Show me the way." But deep down, they're hoping the path won't require losing their comfort, their pride, or their illusions. They want change, but they don't want to pay for it. The truth is, life doesn't wait for your readiness. When the message arrives, it's not asking for your approval. It's an order, not a suggestion. But oh, how people love to stall. They tell themselves, maybe later, maybe when I feel ready, maybe when the timing's better. But here's the thing, timing doesn't wait. The window closes. The opportunity fades. The moment you were born starts to move without you. And you're left standing there, full of regret, whispering to yourself that you almost did something great. Almost. That's the word that kills more dreams than failure ever will. Fear. That's the real reason people delay. Not fear of the message, but fear of the change it demands. Because once you act on truth, there's no going back. You can't unhear it. You can't unsee it. You can't pretend you don't know anymore. And that's the problem. It forces you to move. It forces you to burn bridges that kept you trapped. It asks you to walk away from people, habits, and versions of yourself that were never meant to stay. The truth isn't gentle. It's sharp. It cuts through comfort like glass. But that's what makes it beautiful. It doesn't lie to make you feel safe. It destroys what's fake so you can finally breathe. The delay is deadly. Every time you ignore that voice inside, it gets quieter. Every time you hesitate, your courage decays a little more. You convince yourself it's not the right time. But deep down, it's not timing, it's fear dressed as logic. You wait for confirmation, for another sign. But the truth doesn't repeat itself. It speaks once, clearly, and then watches what you'll do. Because obedience isn't about understanding. It's about trust. It's about moving before it makes sense. It's about walking into darkness, knowing that if the message was real, the light will meet you halfway. People like to say they're waiting on destiny, but destiny doesn't wait. It demands response. Every delay costs something. A dream, a chance, a connection, a breakthrough. And life doesn't refund missed moments. You can't buy back what hesitation stole. The saddest part. Most people never realize they missed their calling until it's too late. They see someone else, living the life they were meant for, doing what they once dreamed of, and they call it luck. But it wasn't luck. It was obedience. Someone else moved when they paused. Someone else believed when they doubted. That's the only difference between the chosen and the forgotten. The willingness to act when the call comes. You can tell who listens immediately. They're the ones who don't need applause to keep moving. They don't wait for approval. They don't chase validation. They move because they know hesitation kills momentum. They act in silence while the world is still deciding whether to believe. By the time everyone else realizes what's happening, they're already miles ahead. That's the price of obedience. It looks crazy at first, but it makes perfect sense later. And by the time it does, it's too late for everyone else to catch up. There's something dangerous about delayed obedience. It feels innocent, like a small pause, a brief wait, but it's actually rebellion in disguise. Because when the truth speaks, silence isn't neutral, it's rejection. You can't say, "I'll think about it," to destiny. You either move or you lose. And every second you wait, fear grows stronger, logic gets louder, and faith gets weaker. That's how people miss miracles. They overthink what they were meant to obey. They try to make spiritual instructions fit into human reasoning. But the truth doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be followed. You know what's ironic? The same people who hesitate when they hear truth are the ones who move instantly when fear speaks. The moment panic whispers, they run. The moment temptation calls, they listen. But when guidance shows up, they debate. Isn't that something? People respond faster to chaos than to calling, faster to doubt than to destiny. It's not that they don't hear the message. It's that they've trained their hearts to respond to the wrong voice. That's why they stay stuck. Not because they can't move, but because they move for everything except what matters. There's a silence that comes before breakthrough. It's not empty. It's sacred. It's that quiet moment when you hear the call, when your heart races and everything in you knows. This is it. But then your mind interrupts. It starts calculating, questioning, delaying, and that's where most people lose it. Because faith is a moment thing. If you don't grab it while it's alive, it dies. The longer you wait, the weaker it becomes. And soon, all that's left is memory, a faint echo of what could have been. But the brave ones, the ones who really rise, they don't wait for perfect clarity. They move with conviction. They don't demand a map. They trust the message. They step even when their voice shakes, even when their heart pounds. Because they know that obedience doesn't need to make sense to work. It just needs to be complete. They understand that when truth calls, delay is disobedience in disguise. And by the time everyone else is still wondering, what if? They're already walking through doors others were too scared to knock on. People think obedience is about rules, about following instructions like a robot, about submission, about losing control. But that's not what it is at all. Obedience, real obedience, is chaos disguised as clarity. It's the moment when your soul hears something your mind can't yet understand. And instead of questioning it, you move. You don't know why. You don't know where it leads, but you move anyway. Because deep down, something whispers, no. And if you ignore it, you'll never get that whisper again. That's how it works. The universe doesn't beg. It speaks once, then watches what you do with the sound. Most people, they hear the same message, but they freeze. They analyze it. They dissect it. They want proof. They want to make sure it's safe. But obedience has nothing to do with safety. It's not about protecting yourself. It's about trusting something bigger than your fear. That's why most never see what they were meant to see. They think safety is success, but safety kills more